The equation of a circle. The equation of a circle is of the form x minus s squared plus y minus b squared will be equal to r squared. And its expanded form is x squared plus y squared minus 2ax minus 2by plus s squared plus b squared to be equal to r squared. We are going to require the knowledge of completing the square method under quadratic equations. And we know that a quadratic equation is of the form ax squared plus bx plus c to be equal to 0. So then, let's make x the subject. Now we are going to say here that the quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c to be equal to 0. We want to understand the steps that we need for completing the square method. So the first step we need is to ensure that the coefficient of the first term here is equal to 1. And since this has been represented by the letter A, we have to divide both sides by the letter A to ensure that by any means this term has to be equal to 1. So we end up having here our terms to be x squared plus b over a x plus c over a to be equal to 0. And then now we take the third term to the other side of the equal sign. So we are going to be left with x squared plus b over a x to be equal to minus c over a. I've taken this term to the other side of the equal sign. And then there is something here that we normally do. That's why I've left the gap here, because you're going to add something both on the left and on the right side of the equal sign. What is that? We normally add the multiplication of b to represent the coefficient of the second term to be multiplied by a half, and then you square the result. So for this case, the coefficient of the second term is b over a. So we are going to have here, the number we are going to add should be b over a multiplied by a half, and then you square the result. Whatever you do on the left side of the equal sign, you also do on the right side of the equal sign. So I'll have here plus b over a times a half, and then you square the result. And then we can decide to now simplify. We end up getting here that x squared plus b over a x, and then plus b over 2a squared will be equal to minus c over a plus b over 2a squared. And then the next step, we normally ignore this term. We pick the terms that have squares and then we combine them together. So on the left side of the equal sign here, I'll have x squared, and then since this number here is positive, you'll have plus b over 2a. I didn't need to have squared here because I'm combining. This will simply be x plus b and a half. This one here will be squared to be equal to, and then on the right side you are going to solve for this. We are going to have here minus c over a, and then plus every number here and every letter is being squared, so we are going to have b squared divided by 2 squared, which will be 4, and then a squared will be a squared, like that. And then what next? We are going to add whatever is here by first of all considering the LCM of these two numbers. The LCM of these two numbers is equal to 4a squared. And if you've got any issues, you can still do it the long way, where we talk of, I can use a different pen, where we talk of the LCM of a and 4a squared. So I can do it that way. So the aim of LCM is to end up getting 1, 1 here. So we can first of all start by dividing by a, so that we get 1. Here we're left with 4a, and then I can decide to divide it by 4, and then here I'll have 1. Here it will be a, and then by a I'll have 1, 1. So I end up with my LCM to be a times 4 times a, which is simply 4a squared. That is why we are having this one here. So then we'll be in a position to say here that 4a squared divided by a will be equal to 4a. And then when you multiply by negative c, you end up with negative 4ac. And then 4a squared divided by 4a squared will be equal to 1. 1 multiplied by b squared, you're going to have here positive b squared. And this will meet x plus b over 2a being squared. Then the next step will be to consider the square root of both the left and the right side of the equal sign, and the aim here is to get rid of this squared here. So here we'll end up having, this one will cancel with this. We are going to have here x plus b over 2a. This will be equal to, and remember, when you find the square root of a number, it can be positive or negative. So we are going to, since both these numbers we are finding their square root, you can separate the numerator and the denominator. We can have here plus or minus the square root of, I can start with this one according to how the formula appears, b squared and then minus 4ac, and then you divide it by the square root of 4a squared. Definitely this one can also be plus or minus, but since it has a solution, we don't need to go there. So we end up having x plus b over 2a to be equal to plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then all over the square root of 4a squared is simply 2a, because the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of a squared is simply a. And then since we are making x the subject of the formula, we now take this term here to the other side of the equal sign. So you're going to have x will be equal to minus b over 2a, it was positive, it has moved to the other side of the equal sign, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And since the denominators are common, we can now combine. So we end up with x to be equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And this is what we refer to as the quadratic formula. In other words, the quadratic formula is the simplified form of completing the square method. That means you can use this formula to find the value of x directly by substituting the values here. But now, whatever we needed is the steps that we need to solve quadratic equations using the completing the square method. For instance, in this question you're being told here, solve the following equation by completing the square method, and then you're given 2x squared minus 6x minus 7 to be equal to 0. So this is what you're going to do. Let's rewrite the equation here, 2x minus 6x minus 7 to be equal to 0. So our first step is to ensure that the coefficient of the first term is equal to 1. And by doing that, it means we are going to divide each of these terms by 2. So we end up having x squared minus 3x to be equal to 7 divided by 2. So I've taken this term to the other side of the equal sign already. And then I've left a gap here for whatever you're going to multiply both on the left and on the right side of the equal sign. And we said we are going to add b times a half squared. And for this case, the coefficient of the second term is negative 3. So whatever you're going to add will be negative 3 to be multiplied by a half squared. So this is what we'll add both on the left and on the right side of the equal sign. So we're going to have here minus 3 over 2 squared. That means you're going to add that. And then on the right side, you also add minus 3 over 2 squared. And then on the left side now, we can decide to ignore this one here. We take the squared terms. So you're going to have here x minus 3 over 2 squared. I'm considering subtraction here because the term had subtraction, or else if you consider positive times negative, it will still give you negative here. This should be equal to 7 divided by 2 plus the solution to this one here will be 9 divided by 4. And then when you add these two fractions, you're going to get 23 over 4, because the LCM here will be 4, and then you'll have 14 plus 9 to lead us to 23. So to be equal to x minus 3 over 2 squared. And then we need to get rid of this squared here by finding the square root of both the left and the right side of this number. So now this one can cancel. You are remaining with x, and then I can change this one to be a decimal number. So you're going to have x minus 1.5 to be equal to, and remember the square root here will be plus or minus. So we end up having plus or minus 2.4. Then our last step is to consider the value of x. So we're going to have here x will be equal to plus or minus 2.4, and then we take 1.5 to the other side of the equal sign, and we'll end up having positive 1.5 there. So the first value of x, we are going to go with the positive, so it will be equal to positive 2.4 plus 1.5. And then the second value of x, we go with the negative, it will be minus 2.4 to add 1.5. And the solution for this one here is equal to 3.9. And the solution for these two numbers here will be equal to negative 0.9. And that is how you solve a quadratic equation using the completing the square method. Another tool that we are going to require is the Pythagoras theorem or the Pythagoras relationship, where we've got three letters, A, B, and C represents the longest side of a right angle triangle, which is the hypotenuse, and then B can represent the base, A can represent the height. So according to this relationship, it states that C squared will be equal to A squared plus B squared. And in short, these are the two main tools that we need when we are considering questions involving the equation of a circle. Let's consider now the equation of a circle. How do we come up with the equation of a circle? Now, I've considered a diagram here of the Cartesian plane, where I've got the x-axis and the y-axis, and then I've got a circle. So we normally give the center of a circle the coordinates A, B. And by this, it means that x is taking care of A. That means from the origin to where the center is, in terms of the x-axis, we have A. And then in terms of the y-axis, we have here B. And then we consider the one point at the circumference with the letters X and Y. That means the distance from the origin to where the point is in terms of the x-axis is given as X, and then the distance on the y-axis is given as Y. So then we'll end up with the right angle triangle here. We'll end up with the right angle triangle, where to get the length of the base here, it will be equal to x minus A. As you can see from these arrows here, there is x, and then to subtract A to get this distance here, which is the base. And then when it comes to the height here, it will be equal to y minus b. Since you are considering this arrow, this is y, to subtract b to get the length of this line here, which is the height. And therefore, since we've said here, according to Pythagoras, that c squared will be equal to a squared plus b squared. If you look at it carefully, the equation of a circle is simply the Pythagoras relationship, because we are going to say here that this can serve as our A, this one can serve as our B, and then C to represent the radius here. So then we'll end up saying that x minus A squared plus y minus b squared, this should be equal to r squared. And this is according to Pythagoras. So this is the equation of a circle here. Now, let's consider the expanded form of the same equation of a circle. We'll start by first of all expanding this binomial here. We are going to have x into x minus A, and then minus A into x minus A, and then we have plus y into y minus b, and then minus b into y minus b. This should be equal to r squared. This should be equal to r squared. And therefore, when you open the brackets, you're going to have x squared minus ax minus ax, and then plus a squared. So I've opened the first binomial, and then the second binomial here we're going to have plus y squared minus by minus by, and then plus b squared. This will be equal to r squared. And then we put like terms together. From the first one here, you can see we can put these like terms together. We end up having x squared, and then minus ax, we get there minus 2ax, and then plus a squared. And then for this other one, we've got like terms here. We're going to have plus y squared minus 2by plus b squared to be equal to r squared. And then the last step is to consider putting the first terms together. That means x squared, I'll combine with this other one here, plus y squared. And then you consider the second terms. We'll have here minus 2ax, and then minus 2by, and then the third terms plus a squared plus b squared. This will be equal to r squared. And this is the expanded form of the equation of the circle. Let's answer the following questions. Number 1. The equation of a circle is given by 4x squared plus 4y squared plus 12x minus 16y minus 11 to be equal to 0. And then you're told to determine the radius and the coordinates of the center of the circle. 3 marks. Now, to find the solutions for the radius and the coordinates of the center, we need to take this equation here, which is the expanded form of the equation of the circle, back to the original form of the equation of the circle, so that we'll be in a position to pick the radius and the center by comparing. So let's have the equation here. This is 4x squared plus 4y squared plus 12x minus 16y minus 11 to be equal to 0. So the first step is for us to get rid of or to ensure that the coefficients of the first term is equal to 1. But then again, we know that when you are dealing with the equation of a circle, especially when you are talking of the expanded form, we've got two expanded binomials here, the ones in relation to x and the ones in relation to y. So maybe by considering that these are the first terms of two separate expanded binomials, we can decide to divide by 4, because the coefficient of the first term should be equal to 1. So we are going to end up having here x squared plus y squared plus 3x minus 4y minus 11 over 4 to be equal to 0. So I've considered the first step as far as completing the square method is concerned. Now I can separate these the binomials by taking care of the ones that are having the unknown x. So I can have here x squared plus 3x, and then I can also consider what I'm going to add as far as completing the square method is concerned, and where we talked of b times a half squared. So the coefficient of the second term here is 3, so I'm going to add plus 3 times a half squared. Then I consider the second one plus, so this is the second expanded binomial, y squared minus 4y, and then I'm going to add plus minus 4 times a half squared, This should be equal to, so we can have here this should be equal to. Now I'll take this whole number to the other side of the equal sign, it becomes positive, so I'm going to have here 11 over 4. And then for anything that I've added on the left side of the equal sign, I should also add on the right side of the equal sign. So I'll have here plus 3 times a half squared, and then plus negative 4 times 1 over 2 squared. And then now we can consider the simplification here. I will ignore the second term there. I'll consider the terms that are having squared, where we have here x plus, inside this bracket I'll have 3 over 2 squared. And then for the second one here, I will ignore the second term. I'll have so plus, and then I'll have y. Here I'll have minus 4 divided by 2, which is minus 2. So I'll have here minus 2 squared. This will be equal to, I'll have here 11 over 4 plus, this will be 9 over 4 plus, here we're going to have 16 over 4. And then the solution here, you're going to have 11 plus 9 plus 16, and then everything divided by 4. You end up having 9, which can be written as 3 squared, since I want to have everything with the squared sign there. So then on the left side of the equal sign, I'll have x plus 3 over 2 squared plus y minus 2 squared to be equal to 3 squared. Now, how do you pick for the center of the circle and the radius? We now do the comparison of the equation of a circle, that x minus a squared plus y minus b squared is equal to r squared. So straight away we'll be in a position to know that the radius will be equal to 3. What about the center with the coordinates a, b? We are going to pick here with comparison. You're going to talk of minus a. I'm picking this one as I compare, will be equal to, this one can be written as 1.5 as a decimal number, so 1.5, and then you divide both sides by the negative, you end up getting here a to be equal to negative 1.5. And then for b, you're going to have minus b to be equal to minus 2. The negatives will cancel, you end up with b to be equal to 2. And therefore the coordinates of the center will be 1.5, negative 1.5, and 2, and then the radius will be equal to 3. And that's the solution. The second question. The equation of a circle is given by x squared plus y squared plus 6x minus 10y minus 2 to be equal to 0. Determine the coordinates of the center and state its radius. Solution. We are going to have here x squared plus y squared plus 6x minus 10y minus 2 to be equal to 0. We begin by considering that the first terms, the coefficients of the first terms are equal to 1. Since they are all equal to 1, we are going to begin by separating. We are going to have the separation of, for the one having x, so x squared plus 6x, and then we consider what we are going to add, which will be plus 6 over 2. That means 6 times a half squared. And then you consider the one having y. We're going to have here plus y squared minus 10y, and then we do the addition there, plus the coefficient of the second term, which is negative 10 times a half squared, and this should be equal to, I take this 2 to the other side of the equal sign, which will be 2, and then I consider all the additions that I've made on the left side of the equal sign to be there in the right side of the equal sign. So plus 6 over 2 squared plus negative 10 over 2 squared. And then by solution, I'm going to consider the terms that have the squared power there. So that means I'll ignore the second term here. I'll have x plus 6 over 2, that is 3. So x plus 3 squared. And then on this other side, I'll have plus y minus 5 squared. I've ignored this and I've picked the terms that have the power 2. This should be equal to 2 plus, here we're going to have 3 squared, which is 9, plus negative 5 squared here to lead us to 25. So that's it. So we end up saying here that x plus 3 squared and then plus y minus 5 squared, this should be equal to the solution of these numbers, which will lead us to 36. And 36 can be written with the power 2 as 6 squared. So then we do the comparison with the equation of a circle. I can write it here, x minus a squared plus y minus b squared to be equal to r squared. So straight away we know that the value of r will be equal to 6 as you compare there. And then when it comes to the center, we are going to say here that negative a is equal to 3. Negative a is equal to positive 3, and therefore you're going to divide both sides by the negative. You end up getting here a to be equal to negative 3, and then negative b to be equal to negative 5. The negatives will cancel. You end up with b to be equal to 5, and therefore the coordinates of the center will be negative 3, 5, and the radius will be equal to 6. The third question. The equation of a circle is given by 3x squared plus 3y squared minus 12x plus 18y plus 8 to be equal to 0. Find the center and the radius of this circle. 3 marks. Solution. Let me rewrite the equation here. 3x squared plus 3y squared minus 12x plus 18y plus 8 to be equal to 0. So I know that I have first terms here. So my first step should be dividing everything by 3 to ensure that those first terms have a coefficient to be equal to 1. So we end up having x squared plus y squared minus 4x and then plus 6y plus 8 over 3 to be equal to 0. And then I consider the binomial that was expanded in terms of x. I'm going to have here x squared, its second term will be this one here, minus 4x, and what I will add as I complete the square will be plus negative 4 times a half squared, and then I consider the other binomial in terms of y, plus y squared, its second term is here, plus 6y, and then plus whatever I'm going to add, which will be 6 times a half squared. This should be equal to negative 8 over 3, and then what I've added on the left I should also add on the right, so plus negative 4 over 2 squared, and then plus 6 over 2 squared. So when it comes to solution, straight away we can consider here, it will be, we pick the terms that have the squared number there. So x, this will be minus 2 squared, that means negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. And then on this other side you're going to have plus y plus 3 squared, that means 6 divided by 2 is simply positive 3. And this should be equal to negative 8 over 3, and then plus, this is 16 over 4, and then plus 36 divided by 4. So we end up having here, when you add these numbers, we end up having 10 and a third. This will be equal to, so I can combine these ones here, I can have them the way they are, x squared, x minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared to be equal to that. Of course, this one I can write it with the square sign by considering the square root of this number. So I'll end up having 3.125, or I can consider having it just as the square root of 10 and a third. I can leave it like that, it doesn't matter. So this one here will be x minus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared. And then I can do my comparison here by capturing the equation of a circle, where I talk of x minus a squared plus y minus b squared to be equal to r squared. And therefore we can consider here that negative a will be equal to negative 2. Negative a is equal to negative 2, and the negatives will cancel. You end up with a to be equal to 2, and then minus b will be equal to 3, and therefore b is equal to negative 3, because I'm going to divide both sides by negative there. So we end up getting our center to be equal to 2, negative 3, and our radius to be equal to 3.125.